What's going on, guys? This is Chandler Smith, and today we are on our way to the bank to pick up a check to go and close on a 32 plex. And so in this video, I'm gonna show you how I got to the point to where I could close on a 32 plex at 29, and we're gonna show you the entire process from getting the check to going to the title company to finishing up the deal. So with that being said, let's jump into it. All right, guys, for those of you that don't know me, my name's Chandler Smith, and I've been investing in real estate for the last 6 years, and this is going to be the biggest deal that I've ever done. And it's actually had a lot of ups and downs throughout the process, from talking the seller into taking my offer, to pushing through financing, to finally being able to get to closing. And to be able to do that, we had to do all kinds of crazy stuff. I had to get ownership of 4 of the units and go in and bump rents to justify with the bank getting a loan from them. We then had to deal with the seller because it took us a little longer to be able to get someone in there and get through the closing process than she wanted. And so she's been right on the edge, and it is such a huge relief to finally get to today where we're gonna be able to go and close. And so I wanted to show you the entire process to where you can see how we go and pick up the check and everything I do on closing day to make sure I'm not getting taken advantage of and that all the numbers are falling into place right. One other thing I wanted to mention that I have been doing for the last couple days is communicating with my loan officer and with the bank to make sure that the closing statement was correct. And the reason for this is we had a lot of back and forth negotiation. Originally, I better slow down so I don't burn this red light. I had negotiated before I had even seen the property to get them to cover the roof, because I'd driven by, I'd seen the property. So I was able to get them to give $60,000 back to be able to cover putting on new roofs as soon as we take ownership. The next thing though is we went in and we did the inspection, and overall the units were really clean, but I found a laundry list of a bunch of things that needed to be fixed. And so we went back and forth after I already had it under contract, and I was able to negotiate another $25,000 off on the purchase price. So now I'd worked them down an additional $85,000 from the original purchase price. On top of that, this is a big purchase. It's actually a $2.1 million purchase. And so I needed to negotiate with the bank to get a low down payment. On top of that, I had to really move some money around to pull it off. So for those of you that watch the channel, I sold a condo that I'd bought a couple years ago, and I did a 1031 exchange. Now, I'm not gonna go into depth on that, but essentially what it is I sold the property and I don't wanna pay taxes on what I made by selling that property. I had originally bought it for $73,000. I sold it for $120,000. So when we sold it, instead of me taking the money, we put it into an account set up where it's a 1031 exchange, where they hold on to the money, I don't get taxed on it, and then they're going to move that money into the down payment on this property today. So when I get my closing statement, I want to go through and I want to make sure that I've got everything that I negotiated. So the roof, I want to make sure that I got the extra $25,000 on top of the $60,000 for the roof. For other things that we found, I want to make sure that they get the $120,000 over from the other property that I've moved that money over. And then I want to make sure that we go through all of the rents on the property to make sure they've been prorated properly and that I'm getting deposits. Because right now they collected rents at the beginning of the month, but we're halfway through the month. So I need to make sure that they've included all of those rents so that everything is coming out equal. And this one even got a little messy because I had taken ownership of 4 of the units. We also had to prorate our rents back for the higher rents that we'd collected. So we had a couple mistakes with the closing statements, but we were able to get all those buffed out over the last day or two. And it's so important that you look through that, because had I not caught a couple of the mistakes, then we'd come into close today and the check I pick up would be the wrong amount and we'd be in a little bit of a mess. Nothing you can't fix, but you want to make sure before you get to the closing table that you've gone through everything and you know your numbers are coming in where you thought they were supposed to come in. The last helpful hint I would give you is I always negotiate really hard with my loan officer. And so I know a lot of you are wondering the terms. On this loan, I was able to get a 3.85% interest rate, which I am just ecstatic about. But I wanted to make sure they didn't hit me in closing costs. Because a lot of times, if you get a lower rate, it's because they've bought down the rate by charging you more on the upfront. And so before I ever negotiated the rate, I got the exact closing amounts, and I said, look, I want you to send me everything I'm gonna have to pay at closing, and I don't want this to change. So I go back through and I make sure that all of their closing amounts they gave me match what now the closing amounts are, even though I've negotiated the interest rate all the way down to just a 3.85. So those are a couple helpful hints you wanna make sure you do as you're going through the closing process, so you don't get taken advantage of or end up needing more at closing than you'd originally expected. And I'll tell you, this has been probably the most stressful deal that I've ever done, because the whole time the seller was on the edge. My financing almost fell through right at the end because they wanted a bigger down payment than I wanted to do. And so I was getting competing banks. I went through all kinds of messy stuff with doing a renovation. One of the units we took ownership for, I've actually already put $5,000 of my own money to renovate to be able to get rents up to where we needed to. And so it's been an extremely messy deal that has been absurdly stressful. However, I think that's what's so important for you to know is this deal looks awesome on paper, and it is. It's absolutely incredible. But you've got to understand, to pull off a deal like this, there is a lot of work and stress and a lot of you pushing crap through just to make it happen for a deal like this to come together. So it's been a ton of fun, and looking back, I'm just pumped on it. But oh man, is it a big relief to get to closing date today. It will be 100% in the bag in about 30 minutes when we sign papers and we are set. But honestly, at this point, I've already seen the closing statements. And one other thing that's kind of a relief is the seller has already signed their end. So we're at the point where, hey, everything's gonna be all right unless somebody comes in, robs the bank, takes my money before we can get in here and get it. I was gonna record the interaction inside because usually with picking up a check this big, the bank kind of loses their mind because you tell them and they double check the amount, and I'll show you the amount, but it's for a down payment for a $2 million property. It's a big deal. And so I'll tell the first person and she'll be like, I got to talk to my boss. And then he'll be like, well, I got to talk to my boss. We have to have a double boss thing going on. And so I've done this on one of my other bigger deals, and it's hilarious to watch. I was thinking about recording it, but I am 100% confident the bank will trip out if I bring the camera in. So I'm going to take my mic off, go in, get it, and I'll let you know if anything else crazy happens. Hundreds of thousands, yeah. And we'll see, maybe I'll show the check on this one because it is smaller than it should have been because of all of the negotiation I've done and because of the 1031 exchange, but it's still gonna be a scary big check. So let's do this. All right, it's go time. We're gonna head over to the title company and get this thing done.
So is this the biggest?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, this is a big scary one. Makes you forget to put your seatbelt on. Odds are they're not gonna let us go in, but essentially all that happens at closing is now they've got a ton of different stuff for me to sign. Half of it I honestly am not gonna look at because it's just the standard closing stuff. The most important things I am gonna look at is the closing statement to make sure all of the numbers are correct when it comes to the terms, the rate, everything with my closing costs and the breakdown of all of that. I just wanna make sure all of the numbers are where I originally thought they were going to be and that it looks good. But there shouldn't be any surprises at closing because I've already gone through all of that to make sure everything's where it needs to be. Now, because Idaho is like a communal property state, I'm gonna have my wife come over and sign as well. You can't, even if I buy a property under my name, Maddie is still going to have ownership in that property. And so Maddie, my wife, as a 23-year-old, probably owns more property than anyone I've met, and she is a total baller, and I wouldn't be able to do any of this if it wasn't for her. And so she'll be over in a little bit. I'm gonna go get all the messy stuff out of the way, and she just has a couple signatures that she'll knock out. We'll hand over the check, and then we are good to go on this property. And then it's time to make sure we get things running smooth, get rents where they need to be so that I don't lose money on this deal. Because if you watch the other video, remember, I'm purchasing this property with negative cash flow. And my goal is within the next year, it will be cash flowing over $80,000 a year, every single year, just in cash flow, on top of the fact that by doing that, it's gonna add, I'm hoping, $800,000 to $1 million worth of value to this property purely by what we're gonna go in and do. So that being said, let's go in and get this thing done. All right, we did it. We just closed on a 32 plex and I am pumped. After closing this big, it's always kind of like you got the jitters for sure. It's crazy that we just got it to finally go through because I've been working on this for literally months with lots of stress. It's a huge relief to close on it. I think the thing that I've got to remember is the next 2 months are going to be very stressful because we've got to get rents raised immediately to be able to make this purchase worthwhile. And so I will get letters out within the next week because I need to give 30-day notice for rent raises. A lot of the tenants are month to month, so we can immediately raise rents. And what I do with people that are in there, I don't like to jump them up to where market value is. As a matter of fact, all of these units I can rent at $800. I'm probably only going to raise the tenant's rent to $700 or $750 on each of the units and just say, look, if you decide to leave, we're putting them at $800, but because you have decided to stay, I know it's hard to have rents increase, but we'll only raise yours to $700 or $750 in hopes that we hold on to them, because if we lose all of our tenants, I know we'll be able to fill it. It'll just be absurdly stressful because right now we only have 4 filled at $800. The rest are all at $500 and they should have gone up years ago. That's the reason they're all month to month, is no one wants to leave rent that is that cheap because you couldn't find it anywhere else. So we've got to face that the next month or two, and we won't be able to raise them until 30 days from the end of this month. So we'll get letters out this week, we'll bump rents the following month, and as long as we don't have a ton of casualties and drop off, I'm hoping it'll be a very smooth transition and we will turn this in to a cash cow when it comes to cash flow. So I am pumped out of my mind, but we've still got some work ahead of us and I'll keep you guys posted on how it goes. And so with that being said, thank you so much for watching the video. If you've got questions about this deal, let me know in the comments. I'd love to do more videos to help you understand some of these bigger deals, but just remember to push that like button and subscribe to the channel, and we'll look forward to seeing you in the future videos. Thanks so much, guys. Have a good day.